Hey reader, welcome back to the channel. This is Centaur here, and today we are taking a look at the traffic direction rule. Now, I'm gonna be honest, this is probably gonna be a pretty short video because honestly, there's not much to talk about. Okay, this is an upgrade that's present on military police. We'll be talking about those later on this week. But just suffice it to say for now, uh, this is actually a really good special rule, right? It's relatively cheap. You fit it into your army. So far, every Armies of book has had access to this. I'm hopeful that every army will have something akin to this. I don't know from an order of battle perspective or from a military organizational standpoint whether people had, like every single nation had military police per se. But having a way to be able to help you bring on reserves is just a really good way to play. For no other reason than I've been the guy who watched my opponent really struggle to bring things onto the board, sometimes very expensive units in an inexperienced transport onto the board. And even though I'm going to win the fight, I never feel good about that win because dice rolls prevented my opponent from playing the game. I didn't show particularly great strategic planning. Maybe my opponent had a slight lapse in their strategic planning, but it's not that I did anything particularly smart. So personally, I hope everybody gets access to the special rule in some way, shape, or form, because if nothing else, then if they fail to bring something on, then either clearly they just rolled poorly because they had traffic direction and it didn't work, or they had a choice to take traffic direction. They passed on that choice, and that was a strategic decision, right? And so I love this rule. I think it's a fantastic rule, and it encourages people to play the game in different ways and to try different things, which is good. So in terms of what this is supposed to represent, it's supposed to represent the fact that there were some units, especially, military police and, kind of backline support logistics units, whose job was mostly to help to make sure that people arrived at the right location at the right time. Okay. And so in the Armies of books, you'll find these all over the place. Everybody gets them, and basically all of them. We've reproduced the one for the Felgendarmery over here on the right-hand side. But it's a very simple rule. When the unit itself is in reserve, okay, so your military police unit has to be off table. It has to itself be in reserve. But while it is in reserve, then vehicles add a +1 to their roll to arrive on their, the order test to arrive. They get to add a +1 to their arrival rules, right? To help them arrive from reserve. Okay. Now, for what it's worth, you'll see over here that the Felgendarmery rules worded slightly differently. Okay. It fundamentally kind of becomes the same thing. Though in a lot of future iterations of the book, we've actually kind of seen it more written out with the +1. And in the case, of course, of the Americans, it has to kind of be a +1 because they already don't get the -1 because of their communication rule. As an army special rule. But the concept being it is slightly easier for you to arrive. Now, it's also worth noting there's a really fun thing you can do with this, where if you have a transport and it's carrying the MP unit in it, then when the vehicle, the transport that it's in, is performing the roll to come onto the board, the unit of MPs is still in reserve. It's still off the table, and thus it will give the bonus to the transport that's bringing it on, and then it gets to come on, which is nice because a lot of these MP units are, in fact, inexperienced, and we wouldn't want to have trouble bringing them on, and they don't help infantry to arrive, right? So they wouldn't help themselves naturally, so you would want to have them in a transport. This means if you have multiple vehicles coming in from reserve, maybe save that transport off for last, because that way you're helping all your other vehicles come on, and then once they've all come on and there's no problems with bringing them all in, then your MPs come in the final transport, and everybody's now on the table and you're ready to play. Okay, so does this help? Well, I mean, obviously, yes, in that you're making it easier for you to do things and you're making it a little more reliable, which is always nice. But you have to realize there's a lot of different things you can do with bringing vehicles on from reserve. Okay, things that can really help you from a strategic level to make sure that you get the tactical superiority over your opponent on a given portion of the battlefield. And I'm going to kind of break up the vehicles into three rough categories of things you can do. There's technically more, but these are the three that you'll tend to see most commonly. The first is, obviously, with transports, you get them where you want them on time, right? Like, I've been the person who tried to call in a transport from reserve on outflank on turn 3, and then it failed to come on. And then you check on turn 4, and it failed to come on. It came on turn 5, and I still ended up winning the battle. It didn't change that much. But it would have been a whole lot easier and a lot less stress if it had come in when I wanted it to, okay? I was playing Poland at the time. We didn't have access to MPs, so I didn't have access to the special rule. Just kind of got to live with what you got to live with, right? But suffice it to say, this rule is really nice because it helps to avoid that situation from happening, right? It hedges your bets and increases your odds that you're going to come on, especially if there's an officer in that transport who is giving that transport the morale bonus to its checks, which is really nice. It's also good for attack vehicles, right? This is not strictly something you need just for transports. It's also really good for attack vehicles because then if you want them to be able to get to advantageous positions against the enemy to kind of maximize their damage, you can do that, right? If you want to bring in an attack vehicle from outflank, let's say that you've got a really zippy armored car with an anti-tank gun on it. So that way if you can get to side arcs or certainly rear arcs on an advance order, your chance of removing things is going to be extremely high. In as much as that's the case, you want to make sure those arrive. And this is one way you can help to do that because suddenly, even if coming in from outflank, for any nation, only gets better with Americans who are already ignoring the penalty, or any other nation that gets to ignore the penalty for coming in from outflank. If you're starting, say, on a morale of 9 because you took it regular, the fact that you're effectively working in on a morale of 10 now is really, really good. So personally, I'm a fan. Okay, I think this works out really, really well. Just again to hedge that bet and make sure that things are getting where you want them, when you want them, when the enemy is in the position where they can be vulnerable to this attacking vehicle. And then it's also good just for surprise defenses, right? So let's say that, you're playing, say, key positions, right? It's a crowd favorite. A lot of people, especially if they're just getting together for a night, it's a very common one to choose because it's a maneuver while also being objective based. And so there's just a lot of questions. But the result is that realistically, people will sometimes just make a push because all that they see that you have on an objective is a machine gun team, maybe a tow or small transport that you don't really need this fight. You're just kind of tucking it away in a place that's relatively safe. And like maybe one other infantry squad, right? Team weapon, light mortar team, AT rifle team, something like that. They look at that and they think, oh, I can send this big squad over there, maybe even, 2 smaller squads, and we can try to wipe those guys off and we can take that one relatively easily. That's an easy one to push. Well, it's going to look easy to push until after they've started that aggressive push forward, and then we get into the next turn and they keep trying to press against that unit, suddenly a fully enclosed armored vehicle comes from reserve, advances onto that objective, and starts laying into that squad. Well, suddenly they look around and they're like, oh, we didn't take any anti-tank weapons because they didn't think they were worth taking or they were too expensive per our last video. And they thought to themselves, oh, well, I'm going to leave all that at home. I'm going to rely on my, artillery choices or more commonly my vehicle choices in order to provide me with my AT options. Well, now they may need to sling some sort of vehicle all the way over to the other side of the board or just abort that offensive and instead push on a different part of the board. Whatever way they end up doing it, you now maintain combat momentum, right? Now everything is in your favor. It's on your terms. And that is extremely, extremely useful. The other thing it does is it does allow you to reliably outflank inexperienced and regular vehicles, okay? Which is not, that's not something everybody can count on, which means a lot of people, they will not necessarily choose to outflank those vehicles, which gives up on the ability for you to be able to, kind of really deep drop troops off in the back line of your opponent. And so just opening you up again for very cheap. This is important to realize. The Fail Gendarmerie over here, which is, I think, the best out of all the MPs just because of cost for value, 28 points in experience for 4 guys, admittedly with pistols. You have to take them with pistols in order to get them down that cheap. But they've got this rule and another rule, which we're going to talk about next week. Okay. So tune back in next Monday if you really like talking about MPs. Just suffice it to say, that's phenomenal value. Right now, the most expensive that we have is the Italian military police at 40 points in experience. It's the most expensive one. And honestly, though, 40-point order dice is really not that bad. It's not AT rifle or light mortar territory. It's certainly not, horse wagon, horse-drawn limber, mule team, or boats, clearly, inflatable boats and stuff. But still relatively cheap, especially for an infantry section. And that is 4 guys who can hold an objective for you, right? And they can flip objective control from something else. They don't necessarily need to be doing damage for you. They don't need to remove their points. if they make sure that the vehicles that you're running are doing their job and they themselves are helping to hold and stick an objective, that might be sufficient, right? And so, in my opinion, I mean, that's the video, right? Like, if you're looking for ways to be able to say, okay, well, I'd really like to bring things in from reserve. I want to kind of surprise my opponent. I don't want them to see where all my stuff is and then be able to plan around that. I want to have a little bit of surprise waiting for them. May I recommend traffic direction? All of the armies that currently have an armies of book currently have this. I have reason to believe France is probably going to also get it. I imagine we'll see a good number, if not all of the Commonwealth forces will also get access to something like this as well. Because British military doctrine did rely on backline guys helping to maneuver and move logistics to make sure that things were going where they were going. And so I anticipate that at least for the foreseeable future, a lot of the nations are going to have it. But what do you think? Is this just a dead weight for a squad, right? Because again, it's not like you have an infinite number of squads you can run in a rifle platoon, right? This is taking up valuable real estate. Is this the kind of unit you use literally every single time? Right? Like this is the kind of thing that you're going to use every single time you play. Because in your mind, whether it's traffic direction, whether it's, just the fact that Felkin Armory are so dang cheap, or because they have other rules like the one we're going to talk about next week, are there other reasons why you end up running these pretty consistently? Let us know down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.